Durant pull-up jumper off the rim and in! Oh! And the Thunder win!
Come on, let's sing the Thunder song.
When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Thunder Buddies podcast. And Darnell, this is kind of an interesting one. We're in the middle of a 5-day break. I think we're on day 3 of a 5-day break in between Thunder games while the rest of the league is going on. Have you ever seen something like this in your, 9 or so years covering the league?
Not off the top of my head. This is unusual to have 5 days in the middle of a season like this. But it's a good thing. The Thunder needs it.
Yeah, especially with Dion Waiters' trade. But I kind of, for a little bit, I thought it might be because of football, but then I saw the rest of the leagues going on. But I kind of like it from a covering perspective because we get the time off just in time to watch 2 really good NFL Saturday and Sunday playoff games, and then tonight, obviously, national title game, Oregon, Ohio State. Quickly, who you got?
I got Oregon.
Yeah, I don't think I've talked to anyone that says anything different.
Brian Windhorst was at practice yesterday. On Sunday, we're recording this Monday morning. He was at practice on Sunday. He's a big Ohio State fan. He's from Ohio, and I'm pretty sure he's got Ohio State. But I'm with you. Most people are picking Oregon.
Yeah, makes sense. But anyways, we can go into some Thunder hoops. Where are you at with this team right now? I mean, I know you're coming off, 2 or 3 straight articles that were, pretty critical.
Yeah.
I feel like, most people at least reading that would think you're down on this team right now.
Well, I am down on them. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm down on them. I've said in the past that they're my now reluctant pick to win the championship.
Do they remain your reluctant
I don't
pick?
even think they're my reluctant pick anymore.
Well, I think last podcast you said they were your pick, so.
Yeah, reluctantly. And now. 2
games have happened between then, the Kings game and the Jazz game. I'm assuming it was the Kings game that.
It's not just, I'm not that fickle where game to game I'm going to, sway and be duped into thinking that this is a different team. I still think this is the most talented team, but the problem that I've seen all along is that they're not always the best team because they're not always the smartest team. And that really concerns me. I just don't see them setting aside their bad habits and doing things the right way in order to win a championship. I don't think that this team has enough discipline. I don't think they have enough focus. I don't think they play with enough effort consistently for 48 minutes. And obviously their offense down the stretch in late game situations is horrendous at times. So, and now you throw on top of that, I think this team's chemistry is a real problem.
That's kind of what I think is different about this team this year than last year. I sat behind the bench in Sacramento. We're in the locker room. They're just, I wouldn't say like a divide, but there's just like, it just seems like less cohesion, less friendliness within the team at all times. Would you say there's factions?
Oh, they're definitely factions. There have always been factions going back to the Jeff Green, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant days. Then you had James Harden, who stepped in with Eric Maynor and Daquan Cook, and that was a faction.
The faction right now that seems to be, I'd say, away from the rest of the team in some ways is obviously the Reggie Jackson one with what he's going on, and his 2 best friends on the team are Jeremy Lamb and Perry Jones. Those are probably the 3 main guys that lose minutes from this Dion Waiters trade.
Yeah.
They're probably hanging out together every day. They're talking about.
And those are the 3 guys who probably need to be gone the most.
I mean, I wouldn't say I don't think they're going to, and I wouldn't say you just ship all 3 right away, but I would assume probably at least one of them.
And I'm not saying that from a standpoint that they're a cancer or anything like that. I do think Reggie Jackson has become a distraction, just with his contract situation, the way he's playing, the way it has affected him. I think, we came into this season wondering if it was going to affect him, and clearly it has. He's been inconsistent. Offensively, defensively, he's generally been non-existent, and it looks like he's sulking at times, which surprises me because I didn't think that we would see any of that coming into the season, but we have, and I think clearly his coaches aren't pleased with him, his teammates aren't pleased with him, But I'm not saying he's a cancer. I do think that's becoming a little bit of a distraction. But when I say I think all three of those guys need to be gone, I say that from the standpoint that I think it would benefit all parties involved.
Yeah, I mean,
they need fresh starts, and
Definitely.
the Thunder is not using them, so they might as well cut their losses and sever ties and just send them on.
Jackson is an interesting case, which we can get to in a second. I think both of us agree. Jeremy Lamb. It seems like the team has kind of given up on Jeremy Lamb, and it
don't seem like it. They have.
Yeah, and then a fresh start would definitely, give Jeremy Lamb maybe an opportunity. I think if he got on the right team, maybe. I mean, he's shown flashes. I don't know if he can be consistent, but maybe getting 34 minutes, no matter how you play, for the rest of a season for a bad team that's not concerned about the playoffs, maybe he could find a little bit of consistency. Perry Jones, I don't think they're going to give up on Perry Jones unless they have to throw him in a deal, because he still does get minutes against certain teams, and they think he has usage against certain teams, and I don't think he has huge trade value. So I don't think they're going to trade him.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for when guys get in foul trouble or if injuries occur, you need that depth, and it's better to have those guys, especially if they don't have much value where you can get something in exchange for them, than not have those guys.
But then, to me, Reggie Jackson is super interesting because regardless, he isn't playing well right now. We know that. But he's not Jeremy Lamb. He's not Perry Jones. He's still very much needed on this team. Maybe Dion Waiters takes away some of the importance, but at the same time, you've even said in the past, like, he is a guy they have to win the title.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how much you can get for him right now unless you trade him to a team that has like a handshake agreement. Hey, we're paying you, you get here and we extend you. Because, there's not many teams out there, because you're thinking you probably have to trade him to a non-contender. You have to trade him to a team that needs a starting point guard, which there aren't many out there. So they wouldn't be trading him for the rest of this. Like, they'd only get him for the rest of the season, then he hits restricted free agency. I don't know how much value he has in a trade under his current contract situation.
Yeah, it's a couple of things. One, he's not making that much, so you'd have to package him with a Kendrick Perkins or something to get some real value back. Two, why would any team give up anything for him when they can just sign him next summer? And that's a real issue. No team's going to give up anything of value when they can just say, hey, we'll just throw however much money we think he's worth to him next summer. So
this was the issue.
It's a real issue.
Yeah, this was the issue. If you don't solve it before the season started, it was going to be an issue coming to the season. We talked about it. The Thunder had never really gone through it, like a contract year with a guy who, wants a contract. It's just, and they've kind of compounded the issue. And I'm not even blaming them because, we've talked about why the Dion Waiters trade was a good idea, but they kind of just compounded the issue by, we're talking about a guy who has clamored and talked about how he wants to be a starter, how he wants to be a feature guy. And then you could always be like, hey, don't worry. You're the sixth man. You're basically a sixth starter. You're a closer.
You're going to get starters minutes.
You're going to get
close
starter
the game.
minutes. You're going to close it. Now it's like, well, you're not playing that well. You got 15 minutes the last game. You didn't close. It's just going to kind of spin his head even more. So it's definitely a situation. It's probably the most intriguing storyline moving forward through the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think something's got to happen no matter what. If it happens with Reggie, if it happens with Jeremy, maybe even Perry.
Well, I think Lamb's situation and Jackson's situation are completely separate because, Lamb.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're the same. I'm saying as the trade deadline approaches, this team's got to make a move. Because this Dion Waiters thing, they're talking about flexibility and having four guys who can create offensively. Well, why would you keep Reggie Jackson to be the fourth guy who can do that if you just went out and got Dion Waiters? That just doesn't add up, and I don't think that they can keep what they have.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson. There's a small percentage chance I'm thinking maybe if they go up to him right now and say, hey, look, you're not getting traded, but you know what you are doing right now? You're losing money in this offseason. So you're going to play out this year, and then you're probably, maybe you're going to sign somewhere else, whatever. But you better step your game up, or else you personally are losing the money and losing maybe the starting opportunity that you were expecting. Because the way he's playing right now, does a team take a chance on him as hey, we're giving you starting point guard type money? Because there's so many good starting point guards in the league, and he's not playing like one. What's his best attribute? Getting to the rim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Last year he took 317 layups or 317 shots at the rim, 298 threes. Yeah, 298 threes. Is that right? That's what Basketball Reference is telling me.
298
I don't
threes?
think he took 298 threes last year. But it says he took 317 shots at the rim. This year he's taking more shots at the rim, or more threes, 129, than shots at the rim, 106. I mean,
speaks volumes.
Yeah, it does. I mean, so his offensive game has changed around, and he's not an efficient three-point shooter. He's shooting a worse percentage this year, something like 27.9% right now.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's like really poor three-point shooting, especially for a guy who's shot 129. It's an issue.
It is.
And then defensively,
it's a bigger issue.
Yeah, it's how many times this season, how many times per game this season do you see Scott Brooks hanging his head or muttering to himself and even saying Reggie by name sometimes? Well, he's sitting in front of us on press row and he's muttering to himself.
Yeah, I'd like to see him do the same thing with Russell Westbrook when it's not getting back on defense. And it's easy to pick on the sixth man, but and I've talked about this before. We talk about Serge Ibaka, we talk about Reggie Jackson, but we don't talk about Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and their issues and their flaws. When Russell Westbrook's barreling to the basket.
Well,
and I'm not making this about Westbrook. Don't get me wrong. But it's more about Scott Brooks than it is Russell Westbrook.
And it's not like we don't talk about that sometimes.
No, we do. But what I'm saying, I think the fans.
Trust me, we've talked plenty about Serge's flaws.
Yeah, a lot of the fans. I mean, it's easy to pick on Reggie Jackson, and I think Scott Brooks has that same approach. And granted, those other two guys are all stars. They're all NBA type performers. They deserve a little bit of a pass in certain areas. But at the same time, as long as you're not holding them accountable, this team is going to continue to do bad things, bad habits that are not going to get them a championship. And that's why, I'm just losing confidence in their ability to get it done. So, I'd like to see Scott Brooks hold everyone accountable like that. When Russell Westbrook is losing his mind, going 3 of 19 with 7 turnovers in Sacramento, bench him. Don't just bench Reggie when he's playing poorly, especially defensively. Do that with other guys too. Now, I'm not saying do it every time with Russell Westbrook. That doesn't make much sense. I mean, he's going to win you more games than he's going to lose you. But I'd like to see some consistency, and it starts from the coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, true. But this I agree with you, and I think that's why you've finally flipped over from them being your championship team from the West. Well, first of all, who is your championship team out of the West now then?
I mean, I'm not ready to pick someone else.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm just saying I don't feel confident that this team is going to win it anymore.
Especially coming out of what's an 8 seed or
Yeah,
something?
7th, 8th seed. I made the bold prediction in the little mini roundtable you and I did.
7 seed.
Yeah, 7th seed, and they're going to win it despite not having home court advantage.
I think we're doing
a
roundtable Wednesday.
Yeah. I might want to throw that question. But by then, I might have an answer for you. But I don't trust Golden State. They're just young.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't see it. I can't see them winning a championship.
They probably need Bogut healthy.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is if Bogut plays, and it's a 1-8 matchup with the Thunder, if Bogut plays, that actually helps the Thunder. That plays to the Thunder's favor
keep
more.
a center out there, Adams.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. I mean, we'll see, but San Antonio, when Kawhi Leonard gets healthy, you can't rule them out. I wouldn't trust a Houston or a Dallas or Portland. So, I mean, maybe San Antonio, but, who knows? To me, the Thunder just doesn't have what it takes to be an elite team consistently because of their poor habits, their lack of discipline, their lack of focus, their lack of attention to detail. Things like that are going to cost them. And I'm just really concerned about this team.
You asked him directly after Saturday's practice. He said he didn't know. He's heard the speculation. But do you personally think Reggie Jackson gets traded before the February deadline?
I don't think the Thunder wants to, but I think they have to. So I'm going to say yes.
I kind of feel the same way, but I don't know. I don't think the Thunder will do that. I don't think they'll kind of panic move. I mean, I understand what you're saying. If we're talking strictly team chemistry, and if they could get something, if they could get like a role player in return, but do you think they'll get a guy that could break their rotation? Is there any chance they could trade Jackson for a guy that could break into their rotation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but going back to his salary, it's going to be tough because who out there has $3 million or less that you can fit within the salary cap rules of a trade that's going to be good.
That a team wants to trade.
Right, exactly. So it's going to be tough. But at this point, if you can get like draft picks for him, I think the Dion Waiters deal was that significant for them in terms of insurance and saying, "Hey, okay, Reggie, you know, it was nice while it lasted, but we don't really need you, especially if you're going to play like this and carry yourself like that."
I think the only way they do make the trade, because I think Dion Waiters is insurance for it, but I think the only way they make the trade is if they think for sure it's a chemistry issue. Like he's got to go because just the way it's affecting the rest of the team. Because other than that, I don't think they're going to get anyone near as potent as him in a trade that could come in and like. I think if they trade him this season, strictly from an on-court standpoint, their chances, their talent level and their chances of winning the title go down by trading him.
But it went up slightly with the addition of Dion Waiters.
It did, but I'm saying so now maybe you play out this season, and then if you don't sign him in the offseason, oh well, you got a little bit more money to go out and get somebody else.
Yeah.
And the Waiters is your sixth man. Maybe you get a defensive-minded backup point guard. Because the thing is, if you do trade Jackson and don't get a point guard, then Ish Smith's your only other non-Russell Westbrook point guard on the roster.
Yeah, I don't think that would hold.
Yeah, I don't either. But
here's the thing, though,
Slater. Get Seabass from overseas.
If we can see it starting to creep in and affect chemistry, don't you think they see it?
Yeah.
I mean, they're around them nonstop, on the bus, in the hotel, in practice, in shoot-arounds, in the locker room. They see it much more than we see it. We only see it in spurts here and there. They see it all the time. So if we see it, they've got to see it.
I agree. I mean, it's interesting. Let's say they don't trade him. Let's say they decide talent.
Then they got problems.
Well, I mean, to me, I think the way I'd go about it over the next, month or so before the trading deadline would go to Reggie Jackson. And like I said, tell him earlier, this isn't about, this is about you in your mind, and you can keep it about you, but guess what? He's losing money right now. I think.
I think he is losing a little. I don't think he's losing as much as maybe you're making it out to be, because other teams know what he can do. Like, he's proven that. And
do you think maybe he's losing a little bit of trust from other teams that, hey, we'll bring you in and immediately, you're the guy, the point guard. We think you're a centerpiece type guy, because he
centerpiece.
Ugh. Reggie Jackson, like, that's his thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say like the number one guy, but bring him in and be like, you're a for sure starting point guard, and you're one of, add you like a Greg Monroe, and then that's our 1-2 punch type deal. I don't know. I just think he's losing trust from the rest of the league. I mean, when you handle yourself this way, it doesn't make you look very good either.
Yeah. I mean, that's why the phrase contract year is out there. I mean, people know it's been done before. He ain't the first one to go through this. So he's still a talented player. He's still on 23, something like that. So his best days are ahead of him, and somebody is gonna. I mean, it's not like he's a bad person. You know what I mean?
No,
he's just having a not a very good season, and he's not handling it the best. But he can still play. He's still very effective. He's still extremely talented, and somebody will give him a chance. Let's
say he stays the rest of the season.
Then the Thunder got problems.
Who plays more minutes, him or Dion Waiters?
Waiters. I mean, I think Brooks is already he's given us a clear indication of which way he's leaning, kind of who he likes more. Dion Waiters' defense is going to give him more opportunities to play more, especially down the stretch.
The thing with Dion Waiters' defense,
I don't think if you're Sam Presti, you can keep this up. I mean, you see what your coach is doing. You know the talent, the asset that you have in Reggie. You might have to. You gotta do something, man. The more I talk through this, the more I'm like, I don't think Sam Presti can keep him this season.
the thing with Dion Waiters' defense, because, I mean, he came in just getting – I mean, he was getting as much defensive criticism from people as Reggie Jackson was.
Yeah.
On the way in. It was like, they got basically the same player. It's redundant. I know it's only been 2 games, and really only 1 game because the Kings game was just like throw it away, basically. Right. He hounded the ball in the Kings game, in the Jazz game. Got up on the guy. I think he picked Dante Exum's pocket. And he was
Jazz
really
game, yeah.
Yeah, he was really like, going after ball handlers, pressuring, causing some havoc. He had 4 steals. He's actually like top 25 in the league in steals. He's right behind Westbrook. Although, Westbrook's obviously missed a bunch of games. But I've never seen Reggie Jackson do that. I don't think I've ever seen him on ball pressure. Because I think Waiters does have some serious defensive issues. I saw him fall asleep at least 3 times where the Jazz got wide open threes. That dude Inglis missed a few of them. And I think that
happened to the Kings, too. Somebody backdoored him, got a back cut layup.
He seems to fall asleep off the ball. But the difference between him and Jackson is on the ball, he seems to be pretty good. And, Brooks always says it, and like take individual pride.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to, when the guy has the ball in front of him and he's looking at him, he seems to take individual pride. Where Jackson, he's not good off the ball either, but he seems to let guys by him a ton.
Yeah.
So that's what, I think Brooks likes most about Waiters, because they can both score. They're both going to be hot and cold. Dion Waiters, I'll tell you right now, he's going to have some bad games in the next
I tweeted when he was 4-4 against the Jazz. He started 4-4. I was like, I feel like he's setting up people to be disappointed. People got mad at me. But
people are pretty hyped on Dion Waiters after last game.
But he missed his next 4 shots. Yeah, he started 4-4, then he went 0-4.
He started strong and finished strong, and that's what
then
people
he bounced back
remember.
and made that huge 3 to end the game.
He made that huge 3 before that he was talking about, like, man, how'd I miss that?
Yeah.
That whole thing was way off. He did one of those, like, when you hit, like, backboard in the then rim.
Yeah.
It was way off. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but he's not, I had him on my fantasy team for whatever reason. I went in on the Cavs this year. I got LeBron with the first pick. I should have picked Anthony Davis. Then I got Kyrie Irving. And late in the draft, I got Dion Waiters. And let me tell you, he was awful. I dropped him about 3 weeks into the season. He was that bad. I thought he was going to be like a low-risk, high-reward guy. And I'm only talking about my fantasy team because I had Dion Waiters on it, and he was so bad. It was unbelievable how bad he was. Shooting percentage, inconsistency. Like he'd have 10 points one night, 2 the next. Then he'd come out and have 20 once every week or once every week and a half. And it's like, dude, like, where's your consistency? He had no consistency. And I feel like, that's probably going to be the same thing here. I got to believe it. I got to see it to believe it.
Yeah, it's going to kind of be interesting. But I will say, I think he naturally fits into the closing lineup more than Jackson, because he legitimately is a 2 guard. Jackson's a point guard that's kind of been forced to play the 2, even though he doesn't want to because of Russell late in games. Waiters is a 2. I think he's more comfortable. He obviously is comfortable if you say, hey, Dion, go get a bucket. He's pretty happy to do that too. But I think he's more comfortable, playing off the ball, sitting on the wing, waiting for a 3 like he hit the other night. And then he guards better. So I just think he more naturally fits into a lineup like that than Jackson. Will he play well? I don't know. And then the other thing is, this team has so many 2-guard options: Anthony Morrow, Andre Robertson, Jeremy Lamb, obviously Jackson Waiters. I'd say he's the most 2-sided, which is kind of unbelievable to say, considering I don't think his defense overall is very good. But he's probably the most 2-sided of any of the 2-guard options. Because if you think about it, Anthony Morrow, super one-sided. Jeremy Lamb, super one-sided. Andre Robertson, the other way, but super one-sided. And then Jackson, the same thing.
Yeah, I think obviously his defense is better than any of those guys other than Andre. But you talked about closing lineups. I'd like to see him against a team like we saw last week when the Thunder played at Golden State. And they've got Steph Curry out there.
Yeah,
they've got Klay Thompson. They've got Harrison Barnes or Andre Iguodala. And and they got, maybe a David Lee or a Draymond Green or Andrew Bogut. Even though he's more of a two-guard, more of a natural two-guard, I don't see him being able to defend anyone in a lineup like that or an elite guy like James Harden.
Well,
so,
but it's weird.
That to me would be the issue that they'd run up against.
It kind of is an issue, but at the same time, then you go, all right, who closes? Reggie? He's not really guarding any of those guys.
Right.
Anthony Morrow? He's not really guarding any of those guys. Lamb? No. I mean, then you say you got to close with Andre Robertson, but then
he can't make a shot.
He can't. Do you want to close with Andre Robertson? I don't. I mean, you might have to against a team like Golden State, but that really severely affects you on the other end. So that's why I'm saying my argument. If everyone's going to get beat, at least Waiters won't maybe get beat as bad as the other guys, and then he gives you offense. It's interesting, and maybe Brooks just goes with who's hot. I mean, maybe if Anthony Morrow has 4 threes that night going into the fourth quarter, he closes. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Should we talk some positives, though? I mean, I feel like
I don't got much time. I got to do a chat.
You got time. You could just tell the people you're doing a Thunder podcast, and you'll be on at 15. I do that sometimes in the chat.
Yeah. Real quickly, what concerns you most? Jeff Green's addition with the Grizzlies, Brandon Wright's arrival in Phoenix, or Josh Smith's arrival in Houston?
It's not Josh Smith. I don't think they're title contenders now or were. Jeff Green one's interesting. I think maybe down the line that may be the most important. But right now, I actually might think it's Brandon Wright because, I mean, like it or not, the Thunder are kind of looks like going to be battling the Suns for the 8 seed going into maybe March. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe 3 weeks from now, the Thunder are 4 games up on the Suns because the Suns go in a slump and the Thunder gets hot. But, remember when did they beat them? It was like right before Christmas or whenever the Thunder beat the Suns the first time, and I think they got to within 1 game of the Suns. And we were all thinking by this time, which is mid-January.
Is that New Year's Eve?
No, New Year's Eve was the second time they beat them. Remember they beat them the first time? Anyway.
Yeah.
Like, we were thinking, 8 seed is going to be easy. They're going to have that within a week. And then by now, which is going to be mid-January to late January, they were going to be rolling easily into the 8 seed. Thunder slumped. Suns got hot, although now they've lost 2 in a row. I mean, that's a team the Thunder could be battling, depending on how they play, for the 8 seed come March and then even into April. So, you worry a little bit about the Suns getting any type of player that makes them better now. Then once you get into the playoffs, I think you worry more about the Jeff Green one because Memphis was so lacking at that position. I mean, Tayshaun Prince was getting minutes. Which, remember how bad Tayshaun Prince was in that? I mean, that was the area that, even Memphis fans were, Kevin Durant would start lighting up Prince early in the game, and every Memphis person would be like, get Tony Allen and get Tony Allen. And Jeff Green just gives him, I don't think Jeff Green's like a big-time player, but I just think he gives him such an upgrade there.
Yeah.
What about you?
I actually like the Josh Smith move.
Your kind of player.
I think he helps that team. He gives them another versatile defender who could give, if you meet them, I've said on the podcast before that if the Thunder and Rockets met, that'd be a 5-game series at most. The Thunder taking it in 5 at most. Maybe even a sweep. Josh Smith, I think, is good enough to give them another game in that series. If not, push it to 7. And now people might hear that and think I'm crazy. So what? I think Josh Smith's versatility, offensively and defensively, gives that team another threat that they desperately need. And, when they get Terrence Jones back, who knows what he's going to be able to give them. They're going to have some stuff to figure out. But I think adding that firepower with Josh Smith really helps that team and makes them a more dangerous playoff team. It's not to the point where I wouldn't want to see them in the playoffs, but I wouldn't feel as confident now as I did before.
He's kind of struggled, and they've kind of struggled since he got there.
They got off to a good start. What are they doing since?
I mean, let me look quick, but he already got, I wouldn't say benched. I mean, but he was starting, and now he went to the bench.
He's played 10 games with Houston.
What are they?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 and 3. I got that right. 1, 2.
Yeah,
3,
I guess they've won
4,
3 in a row. I
5,
didn't know they won
6.
3 in a row.
So they're 6 and 4.
Okay,
6 and 4 with him.
But at one point they were what, like 3 and 4, something like that. Anyway, I'm interested to see Thursday. Thunder coming off a 5-game break in Houston. Waiters.
That's going to be a good game.
Yeah.
That's a TNT game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's TNT. The Thunder plays TNT against Houston on Thursday, and then Warriors at home on Friday on ESPN.
Josh Smith is shooting 16% from 3 in his 10 games with the Rockets.
Josh Smith should be shooting 0% from 3 because he shouldn't take a 3.
But guess what? He's only shooting 1.8.
That's actually progress.
It is progress. You just got to make some.
Just not take some. That's the key.
Man, he's shooting 38% from foul line. Getting
Wow.
there 2.1 times, but he's only shooting 38%. Averaging 10 points, just under 5 rebounds, just under 2 assists, and a steal.
He's not playing that well.
But you're right. He didn't start his first game. Then he started the next, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then he's come off the bench for the last 5.
Rajon Rondo is shooting 33% from the free throw line in the last 2 seasons. He's a point guard.
Jeez.
He had, to his, I guess, credit, he hasn't shot that many. 16 of 48 from the free throw line in the last 2 seasons. That's crazy for a point guard.
I don't understand how these guys are that bad at free throws.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can kind of understand some centers
With the big hands and
big
everything.
hands, and that's not what they do. But man, a point guard, and I think, I mean, I guess I don't watch him enough to know for sure, but I've heard like Rondo is now a lot more afraid to get to the rim than he ever was. And the weird thing about Rondo, I mean, if you look at his first, he's never been a good free throw shooter, but 64%, 61%, 65%, 62%, and he's been 60 or above pretty much his whole career until the last 2 seasons. Now he's 33.
How'd you get on Rondo?
Because you said Josh Smith's free throw percentage, and I knew Rondo's was bad, so I had to go look up how bad, and it was bad. But anyway, can we do a few positives about this Thunder team?
Sure.
One argument for their struggles a little bit lately, and I agree with it to some level, is when the 2 games they lost in California, their superstars struggled. And when Westbrook and Durant struggle, they're not going to win, typically, depending on who they play. But let's say in the playoffs, regardless of how the rest of the team plays, regardless of how well they move the ball, if Westbrook and Durant are missing jumpers, because they're going to take a lot of jumpers, if they're missing them, they're not going to win many, if any, games.
So what's your positive?
That maybe in some ways the struggles are related to. I know the Kings game was pretty much inexcusable. The Warriors game, they just got outclassed. But in some ways, we've seen Durant, I'd say 3 out of the last 5 games, particularly the Wizards game that they won at home and the Suns game they won at home. Durant, I mean, regardless of how they are playing, if he's playing like that, MVP Durant, they usually win most games. So sometimes it just comes down to how hot they are.
Is that guy going to show up in the playoffs?
I think that's
for 16 games.
Well, yeah. I mean, sadly, I mean, and I don't want to
That's
say
what they
sadly.
need.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They need both of them to play well, or at least average, with one of them playing a high level game. You know what I mean? One of them plays their top game while the other one doesn't
have a 3 of 19
severely
game.
negative game.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just kind of how they're built. That shouldn't be too much of a surprise, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a growing resentment or frustration with Sam Presti for building this team like that. And I think some of that's fair, but when you have 2 guys who are making max salaries, your hands are kind of tied with what else you can do. I mean, I'm not sure what everyone wants them to go out and get when you got two guys making max in Durant and Westbrook, and then a third guy in Ibaka making $12.5 million.
How many teams would and how many teams wouldn't in the NBA trade rosters with the Thunders right now? I don't think many wouldn't, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You think San Antonio would?
I don't know. I think long term they probably would. I mean, just because, you know,
but if you had to win a championship this year,
and you could restart the year and everyone's healthy, because, I mean, we always do have to remember the Thunder did have that wild start with all the injuries.
Yeah. Throw out record,
restart the season. I think San Antonio would. I don't know, because there's so much, like, back-end cohesion with San Antonio that comes from so many seasons. But I think if...
corporate knowledge.
I think if you took the... I think the San Antonio might say no, but I think if you took the Thunder's roster and then you took the Spurs roster and were giving it to, like, a third party, they'd take the Thunder's roster. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if you did that with almost every team in the league, they might take the Thunder's roster. I mean,
Golden State.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Best backcourt in the league.
Yeah, really deep. They're deep.
Yep.
Spates suddenly turned into like a really good player.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, you know, maybe
Portland.
I don't like Portland's bench.
Yeah, nobody does. But here's the thing. I mean, the Thunder's got two guys. And I throw Ibaka in there.
Ibaka's still.
I would throw Ibaka in there from strictly a defensive standpoint. I mean, I love what he gives you from a mid-range jump shooting perspective, and now he's
long-range.
And now he's extended it out to 3. But defense is really what you need him for.
Ibaka is a very, very solid NBA player. He's kind of a little bit having a down year.
Yeah.
But he's a solid NBA player. He had 8 blocks against.
He's more than solid.
Yeah,
he's a really good NBA player. Yeah, he's a really good NBA player.
Not an all-star, but, you know, he's been in the all-star argument the last few years.
Top 35 player?
Let's see. 30 make the all-star team, and the West is a little more stacked than the East. So, yeah, I'd say top 30. I would say he's probably right around 30. What was he in that ESPN's NBA rank? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but I think he's in the top 35. Not an ESPN rank, in my rank, whatever that means.
Mayberry rank.
Yeah. Hashtag.
39.
39 he was,
in 2013, actually, he was 39.
So that means he had to go up this year.
You'd think. Keep going.
He's probably top 30 this year. But anyway, I mean, you got the two guys. It's a top-heavy roster is my point. You got Durant and Westbrook. Then it's a drop-off. Then you got Ibaka, maybe Reggie. And then it's a severe drop-off.
Yeah.
Other teams have, more depth in terms of guys who can actually play, not guys who have potential.
That's why Waiters might have actually been a...
I tweeted out something about Waiters' ESPN rank when they made the trade. He was, I think, 100th or 101. Jeremy Lin was one ahead of him, I believe.
Jeremy Lin.
Reggie Jackson was 6 behind him.
I would have put Jackson ahead of him. I think actually Waiters may fit better, but I think Jackson still remains a better player overall. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the defense, man. What did you think of his answer the other day when we were talking to him?
I'm not going to use one game where he got 4 steals and say he's like this world beater defensively.
First of all, I mean, Deion Waiters gets a lot of steals.
That doesn't make you a good defender.
Like I've said, I saw him the other night. I've heard, obviously, some of the criticism not true. He's not very good off the ball. He has some flaws defensively. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
I just think his flaws.
His effort clearly is in the games that we've seen with the Thunder has been better than Reggie's.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him that. But I'm not going to say he's just this great defender after.
He's not.
Let's see it.
Not.
You know what I mean?
No.
He's got everything to play for in his home debut with a new team, fresh start. It was Dante Exum.
No.
It was a rookie. You know what I mean? Trey Burke, his second year. Let's see how it plays out when he's actually playing 2 guards that he needs to get stops against.
The thing I'd say is I think Reggie would be a better player because Reggie's better at getting to the rim. He's better at finishing. I mean, he's got an elite skill in that sense. But at the same time, and you look at Waiters and you're like, why does he keep taking those contested mid-range 2s that he loves so much?
Right.
But the problem is Reggie's starting to play offense like Deion Waiters. He's starting to take these mid-range contested 2s and 3s.
That is a good point.
And the thing is,
he's starting to play offense like Deion Waiters. That's not good.
And the thing is, Deion Waiters hits a higher percentage of those type of shots.
All right, I gotta go chat.
No.
I gotta
Keep
go
going.
chat.
Keep
I gotta
going.
go
Come on.
chat. I'm 10 minutes late, 12 minutes late. The people are waiting.
Did you tell the people you were just finishing a podcast? They'll be happy to hear that.
We're on it.
All right. If you're leaving now and if we're doing a shortened podcast, then we got to do number 2 this week, right?
That's the plan.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wednesday, we might have a guest for you. We'll see. It's not in concrete, but it's likely.
We'll do another one to make up for this one.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Durant, pull-up jumper, up the rim, and and the Thunder win! Come on, let's sing the Thunder song. When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.